Are you ready to go boondocking?
Out in the boondocks.
What is boondocking?
Is it safe to go boondocking?
What do I need to go boondocking?
How do I find spots? Well, this is Sean.
This is Angie.
Come along while we talk all about boondocking.
We'd retired and hit the road in February of 2019 in what we refer to as our one-bedroom mobile suite.
Welcome to our home. In 2019, we spent a grand total of $777 on campground fees, and in 2020, we spent a grand total of $792 in campground fees.
Wow, we're pretty consistent or boring.
Frugal. Cheap.
Frugal, cheap. Okay.
So how did we do that? So we've spent a vast majority of our time boondocking or dispersed camping on public lands, either National Forest lands, BLM lands.
We had some state parks.
So what exactly is boondocking?
In my opinion, I think it's where you camp basically in the middle of the boonies with no hookups, meaning no water, no power, no sewer available.
So is lot docking in a Walmart parking lot boondocking? What about overnighting in a rest area? Is that boondocking? We are in Alabama, and we've just spent the night in a rest area. Got a little sleep. We're just a few hours away from my brother's house. Our definition is no. And the reason for that is because you're not camping. Walmarts, Cracker Barrels, a lot of those private entities that will allow you to overnight specifically request that you don't camp. They request that you don't drop your stabilizers.
And they have a time limit.
You don't get out your camp chairs. That you don't look like you're camping.
Right.
You're not supposed to be. Those are supposed to be a place where you can get, maybe some much needed rest and then move on safely to your destination. But it's not boondocking, in our opinion.
Right. Usually it's a timed overnight, 8 to 12 hours maximum that you can stop.
Even a lot of your rest areas will have specific time limits posted along with no camping. It's just a place to get rested up and then so you can safely move on down the road. So what equipment do you need to go boondocking, Ange?
I don't know. We started in a tent.
And then we moved to a slide-in camper.
Yeah, and then we had a little travel trailer.
And then we had a bigger travel trailer.
And then we have the one-bedroom mobile suite.
That's right. So really the equipment is all on personal preference.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time in a tent with my buddies, nothing but a canteen and a pocket knife.
I was going to say, we saw a four-wheel drive diesel van just pull up the road just yesterday, so that was cool.
And of course those equipment, depending on the equipment you have, depends a lot on the locations that you can get into.
Right, because we can't go near the places we did when we had a tent.
And that takes a little bit of research.
Right.
So you get up into an area like this dispersed camping spot that we're on, and I'm going to turn, and you can see there's a lot of area back there to put in vehicles. We get asked frequently if we have concerns for our safety when we're out in the boondocks.
No, we don't worry about that at all.
Yeah, we really don't. You know what? As a matter of fact, we prefer to be out in this kind of an area.
In nature.
Look around. Ain't nobody here but us.
Well, and generally the people that are just out to have a good time, and they don't have, I don't know, nefarious intent.
Yeah, the only time we've ever actually had anything stolen from us was in an RV park.
Right.
And where you're surrounded by people who you have no idea what their histories are or maybe what their intents are. Not to say that we're uncomfortable in RV parks either, but as a retired law enforcement officer, I can tell you that when you're in the public, there's more likelihood that somebody around you may take advantage of you than when you're out and about like this. So, we'll leave our trailer. We certainly take the safety precautions of not leaving expensive items out visible where somebody may just drive by and grab them. And we lock up the trailer. And we installed an RV lock in our trailer so that we have our own personal code. So many trailers are all keyed alike.
Right. But we don't, you know, your neighbors are generally further away, obviously, than they are in an RV park. So, I mean, even if somebody kind of comes close, it's usually not that. It's not like RV park close by any means.
Yeah. And again, you know, when you're up here doing this type of activity, you're generally surrounded with like-minded people and people that aren't going to be taking advantage of you. Jasmine's in search. What are you looking for, Jasmine?
Looking for a squirrel to chase.
Yeah, anything. The ground squirrel out there digging a hole.
Up here in our national forest, we kind of expect that we're not going to have many neighbors. We have had neighbors kind of in close proximity, and they usually talk to you and say, hey, are you guys using this whole space? Can I go down here? That kind of a thing. But mostly you expect to not really run into anybody. That's kind of the point of being up here in the national forest, away from everybody.
So up here on the national forest, of course, there is no generator hours. Right. There's no quiet time. But you're not right on top of somebody else. However, if you know that you've got a neighbor a little ways away, try to be considerate of those people and not be singing drunken karaoke at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
And of course, unlike in designated campgrounds and RV parks where there are some rules such as generator hours and quiet time that do not exist up here, one rule certainly does, and that's pack it in, pack it out. We have seen so many closures of land because some people have been inconsiderate and leave their garbage and take off to the next location. Please be a steward of nature. If you packed it in, pack it out. And if for some reason there is some garbage in an area when you arrive, please pick it up and take it out. Leave the site cleaner than you found it. That's always been our motto.
And if you have an idea of where you want to go, and it's occupied and there's somebody in there, then, you know, that's why we have a backup plan.
You may show up to an area and it's already occupied. So it's important to have a backup plan in case you need to move on down the road a little bit. Sometimes you show up in an area, in a dispersed area, where it may have been raining previously and it's just too muddy to get into. So it's always important to have more than one option when you're headed to a boondocking spot.
Correct.
And finally, how do we find boondocking spots? You know, Angie and I, we grew up camping, and so we're familiar with a pretty large area of northern Utah and southern Idaho where we've traditionally camped over the years.
Right.
So being familiar with the area is certainly important. But when you're unfamiliar with an area, there are a number of apps available, such as Allstays,
Campendium,
and freecampsites.net, where you can find information about dispersed camping areas in the area that you're going to.
YouTube channels are excellent resources. I mean, we've heard of a couple of spots just from watching other channels, so it's been awesome.
And then, of course, again, if you're unfamiliar with the area, I will zoom in using satellite views on Google to make sure that I'm going to be able to get into those spots with this big girl.
Well, and go to if they have a website for the area and they talk about size that will fit, that's certainly helpful.
Yeah, often the entity that's managing the land, whether it be BLM or the National Forest Service, you can go to that specific field office's website and there may be some information on there as to the Forest Service roads, the condition that they're in, and of course what the rules are in that specific area, because they do differ from place to place.
Right.
So most places will allow up to 14 days dispersed camping in an area, but that's not always the case. So it is important to go to those websites and find out what the rules are. And if you don't have the opportunity to do that, often when you're pulling into a specific area, there may be signs there that would indicate what the rules in that specific area are. Mark Guido from Grand Adventure made an excellent video showcasing how to use a variety of different apps and government websites to be able to locate boondocking sites in areas, and I'll put a link in the video. We hope you enjoyed this little video about Boondocking. We hope you learned a thing or two. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and follow Angie, Jazz, and I on our journey. And of course, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and we'll try to get back to you.